Each one contains some gold beads. Right? And the other day we took these gold beads and we exposed them to a chemical called MUA, which the whole purpose was to coat the beads. So what we have to do right now is, you can see these beads are in a liquid solution, and we need to separate the liquid beads from the solution, so we're going to put them in something called a centrifuge. Now this is your centrifuge right here. It's a pretty simple machine. Just have to unscrew the lid, and then what it's going to do is it's going to spin very fast, and all the gold beads, since they're heavier than the water is, they're going to fall to the very bottom of the tubes. So make sure I've lined this up just fine. Okay, through trial and error we've got these settings down, so it's going to take, just going to set this to about 15 minutes. And now we just have to wait. Very exciting. So, be back when... So, started. You're good? Okay, so after the centrifuge, we've spun them down. You can see, perhaps, the color looks very clear now because there's a little tiny pellet in the bottom. That's all the gold beads. So now the task is to get all this liquid out, because I don't want all the liquid, I just want the gold beads. I pop it open. This is like a really fancy pipette, okay, but it's got numbers on it and a dial, so I can make it, I can have it draw exactly the amount that I want. So I'm very slowly just going to suck up this fluid and just spit it out into the waste container. It's not very exciting, but it's hard to do. There you go, that's one. No more liquid. Just a bunch of red gold beads on the bottom. Alright. Okay, so now we're up in Hatash's lab, which is 2 floors above ours, because she has the chemicals that we need for the next step. We're going to be using 2 chemicals to mix with our gold. It's called NHS and EDC. Now, we need to use specific amounts, so first I have to weigh out the specific amount that we need. And to do this, I'm going to start with an empty glass vial. Now, I need to find the mass of this vial, so I'm going to come over here to the balance. This is a highly accurate balance. I'm going to find the mass with the cap and the tube, and close the door. The reason why I have to close the door is because even breathing or a small gust of wind is enough to affect the mass that's shown on the scale, so the door just stops that from happening. I've got 4.5823, so now I have to write this down. 4.5823, and that's grams. So what I need to do is add 150 milligrams. That's 0.15 grams. So the mass that I want after should be 4.6323. Okay, 4.6323. So here's my NHS. I'll take a little scooper and I'm going to start adding this very slowly until I get that magic number. Okay, 4.63, remember, is what I want. 4.59. That's 608, and I'm going to double check my numbers because I can only do this once. Yeah, this is when I double check my numbers. I switched the numbers for my 2 chemicals. I only need 42 milligrams of NHS. This is the whole process. So, after we've got them all measured out, I'll be back with you for the next step. Alright, this is my partner in crime, Jared. Right now he's working on measuring out the second of our 2 chemicals. He's got the EDC, and right now he's trying to measure out 150 milligrams of it. Turns out the amount that I was supposed to do with the NHS was only about 42. And so you can see if you can zoom in over his shoulder here. There we go. You can see now that he's working on just adding just the smallest amount at a time, okay, into the vial that he's got on this analytical balance here. Okay, so what we're going to happen And what we're going to have to do next is add in some water to dissolve all of this stuff. And then after that, we're going to start mixing it with our beads. So stay tuned for that next step.
And then we got split that milk.
Okay, so we're back downstairs now. This is our solution that we made from both of those chemicals that we just weighed out. We've mixed them together, and now I need to add these to my 4 different containers containing the gold beads. Okay, so I've set this so that I'm going to get exactly the same amount in each container. See, it goes fairly fast if you're good at it.
Yeah. I'm going to cut that right off. I'll pull right through here and feed it right out of that valve.
Okay. Right. You can only use these tips once, so when we're done, they eject right into the waste container. Okay. Now we just have to spin these tips around, get them to mix real well. It's going to take about half an hour, and after that we'll be ready to add some proteins to them, because remember, the whole point is to get some proteins stuck to these beads. Okay, so we're back in my lab. After we added the chemical mixture to our gold beads, we expected it to coat them nicely, and by looking at the solution in our tubes, we expected to see a little bit of pink. However, when we mixed them together, we didn't get pink. We got slightly yellowish tinted liquid. It was mostly clear. Usually that's a bad sign. It means our gold beads have clumped up together. It's the last thing that we want to happen, because when they're clumped up, they can't react with anything else. So we spun them down in a centrifuge to see if we could get them to come to the bottom, so we could kind of separate them out from the liquid. Well, after we spun them in the centrifuge, there wasn't any pellet at the bottom. The beads stayed in the solution. It was very unusual. We have no idea what's going on. So this is research. A lot of times what you do doesn't work. Very few times it does. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe we'll figure out a way to salvage it. But I'm not really that hopeful for it. Anyway, we'll see what happens, but this has been a pretty typical day in the lab, and catch all of it later.